Welcome back. Thank you for coming back for our first panel of the conference with the title Legality and Discourse on Artificial Intelligence. As the first panel, it's been left to me or to us to set the standard, both in terms of quality, but also in terms of format. And unfortunately, it's not off to a good start. We're missing one of our panelists somewhere in the ether. We're joined today by three fantastic speakers who I'll introduce separately.
I think I'm here. Sorry, I think I'm here.
I
have been here.
Is Yiran here as well?
Yeah, I have been here. Sorry, I'm late.
Okay, well, there we go. I spoke too soon. We're all here. That's great. My name is Adam. I'm a PhD student at Leiden University. I'll be speaking tomorrow, so you'll hear a little bit more from me then. More importantly, we're joined here today by Dr. Haemin, Fan Yang, and Dr. Yiran Li, who are each going to speak for about 15 minutes or so. I'm hoping that particularly our online guests can keep their own time, because I'm not entirely sure how I can give you a 2-minute signal remotely. And then we'll have some time for questions at the end. So please do start thinking about what you would like to hear from our panelists. So clearly, one of the kind of key themes of this week's conference is that China, like all modern states, has sought to kind of introduce a wide range of digital and automated technologies to domestic governance as a way of bolstering its own capacity and solving some of the kind of key challenges that every state faces in the 21st century. And in this first panel, we're going to explore some of the attempts to introduce these technologies in the judicial and the regulatory sphere. I'm going to now welcome our first speaker, Haemin, who has quite literally just stepped off a plane from New York and Los Angeles, and is presumably feeling a little worse for wear, but at least he can get it out of the way. She's an assistant professor in the Department of Social Sciences at the United States Military Academy, so West Point, where she studies authoritarian institutions and their relationship to governance outcomes. She finished her PhD at Stanford University in June last year, and I believe the presentation you're going to give today has the same title or a very similar title to your dissertation thesis. So we're all very excited to hear about that. Over to you.
Thank you, Adam. Should I use this mic or this one? Whichever. We're good. Okay, thank you, Adam, for the very kind introduction. I'm so happy to be here. I did just land from New York, but I'm very good at sleeping on planes, and so I'm energized to be here with you all in person. And I'm very honored to be the first panelist on the first day of the conference. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me here. All right, so I'm excited to talk to you today about this is from my dissertation and my book project. This is a presentation titled Credit for Compliance, How Institutional Layering Ensures Compliance in China. And so I'm sure I don't have to tell anyone in this crowd that the social credit system in China has been regarded as this tool of surveillance, as a form of control, as a way to sort of judge and rate more than the 1.4 billion citizens who live in China. And that's very much sort of the image that the Western media has put on China's social credit system. But when we look at how China's social credit system has been actually implemented at local levels, we find that actually the social credit system targets firms. So, for example, a bakery in Yiwu, China was punished for violating trash disposal regulations. A firm in Hangzhou was punished for violating fire safety regulations. And we see that many of these firms are actually punished for rule violations. So things like failure to comply with tax laws, traffic violations, violations of environmental regulations, etc. And so this practice of the social credit system in actuality at the local levels sort of begs the question of why create an entirely new institution like the social credit system to address violations of existing rules and regulations that should supposedly be under existing institutions, right? And so to sort of preview my answer, I argue that the social credit system is used to improve compliance with existing regulations and laws without empowering existing institutions. And I'll get to what I mean by that in a little bit. And we know that in China, the sort of regulation problems and regulation failures are more salient to the Chinese public. So here, more than 70% of Chinese citizens believe that regulation failures relating to safety of medicine, safety of food, pollution are big problems in China. And we know that this has increased over time. And we also know from previous literature that the institutions that are designed to address these types of regulation failures have actually not addressed them, right? So we know that courts suffer from information blind spots, they suffer from weak enforcement. Regulatory agencies were concerned about fragmented authority structures that impede sort of the effective regulation. And at the local level, we're sometimes worried about local state capture, that local interests sort of hinder the effective regulation of these industries or effective implementation of laws and regulations. And this points to general principal agent problems, information asymmetries that we know are ubiquitous in the Chinese bureaucracy. And so I believe that this points to a greater sort of dilemma for autocrats, which is that autocrats want to secure compliance with their laws, they want to regulate economic players, they want to impose social order. And one sort of answer to this dilemma is to create or strengthen judicial institutions. But this strategy, creating or strengthening judicial institutions, can actually pose problems for autocratic rule. So courts, if given the power to enforce economic regulations or economic laws, cannot credibly commit to limit their own power just to that economic realm. Courts can become sites of political contention where activists become empowered and use the law and use the courts as a forum for their grievances. And courts can create a new class of elites like lawyers and judges that could become potential regime challengers. And so actually this strategy of strengthening existing judicial institutions could pose real problems for the autocrat. And so this greater sort of autocratic dilemma is that autocrats want to enforce laws and regulate markets, but it can be quite dangerous to empower the courts. So how can autocrats increase compliance and regulation without undertaking very risky sort of political reform? And I argue that autocrats engage in this particular context in institutional layering. And institutional layering is the creation of new institutions that share the same goals as existing institutions, that address the functional gaps of existing institutions, the problems of existing institutions, but crucially allow autocrats to increase regulation without the danger of mobilization against the state. And so I argue that the social credit system is an example of the strategy of institutional layering. So why implement the social credit system in this particular instance? So the first advantage is that it addresses the weaknesses of existing institutions, mainly through two functions. The first is an information consolidating function, and then an additional punitive function. So the social credit system can levy additional fines, it can limit access to government services and capital, and then in some cases, it can shut down the commercial activity of violators. And then the second crucial advantage of the social credit system is that it has low potential for political mobilization. So there's no development of professional elites such as lawyers or judges. There's no democratic symbolism or rhetoric the way there is attached to the courts, even in a regime, even in an autocratic regime. And no independent source of power, in that the social credit system does depend on the functions of other institutions in order to complete its functions. And so if the social credit system, like I argue, is an example of institutional layering, then we might expect to see certain observations, right? So we might expect that the social credit system could increase law enforcement without empowering the courts, right? That's the crucial sort of motivation for the social credit system. And so the observable implications that follow is that the social credit system should selectively target rule violators rather than sort of targeting everyone. It should improve implementation and enforcement of law, but it should not lead to increased political oversight of local officials by the court. So it should not be strengthening the courts. So one sort of data source that I use are these blacklists, which are public lists of violators shared across agencies. So I scraped over 70,000 entries from 4 pilot cities that are implementing the social credit system. And I collected variables such as the agency that submitted the blacklist entry, the target that was blacklisted, the reason for why the target was blacklisted, and then the punishment given. And so if we're looking at the first question, the first observable implication of does the social credit system selectively target rule violators, we want to sort of see, okay, who is being targeted under this blacklist system? And so here I'm just simply showing you the sort of percentage of entries from these blacklists that are about individuals. And that the percentage of blacklists that are about firms. And so we see that in 3 of the 4 pilot cities, there are almost no blacklist entries about individuals. They're almost all exclusively about firms, except for in the case of Hangzhou. And then in that case, all of the individuals on that blacklist are those who did not comply with court orders. So another sort of way we could think about whether the social credit system targets violators of existing laws and regulations is to look at the reason why they were punished, right? So what is the reason for being blacklisted, put on these blacklists? And here I'm just simply going to show you the most common reasons why an entry is blacklisted. So for 13% of blacklist entries, it was failing to cancel registration of old vehicles. So if any of you have not been to your equivalent of the DMV, that's sort of why you would be blacklisted. 10% were not meeting gas usage standards, 9% were contract disputes, false tax invoices, violating fire laws, intellectual property violations, but all of these point to sort of existing rules, existing regulations, and that these firms were blacklisted because they violated existing rules, not new ones. I also examined this a little bit more systematically because one of the pilot cities blacklists contained larger, sort of longer explanations for why an entry was blacklisted. So I was able to run some structural topic modeling, and I ran a structural topic model with 25 topics with the submitting agency as a control variable. And we find, again, that firms enter the blacklist for violating existing laws and regulations. So 39% of the blacklist entries were for violating public safety regulations, 35% were about market regulations, and 23% were for violating bureaucratic regulations. Okay. So I've argued that the social credit system is a case of institutional layering, and if so, we should see that there's some improvement of outcomes, so improvement of law enforcement without simultaneous empowerment of the courts. And so I will sort of take you through number 2, observable implication number 2 and 3. And the data I'm going to use here is or the strategy I'm going to use is I'm going to compare cities that implemented the social credit system with those that do not, using a difference in differences research design. And so pilot cities began implementation around 2016 and 2017, and I'm using panel data. So my hypotheses are that pilot cities will have better enforcement of laws and regulations, but that pilot cities will not have greater political oversight of local officials from the courts compared to non-pilot cities. So how am I going to get this sort of data, right? So I use this annual assessment report on China's law-abiding government published by China University of Political Science and Law. This data set includes 100 cities, including 26 pilot cities, so 84 non-pilot cities. And the data runs from 2014 to 2018. So I'm getting data both the pilot cities and non-pilot cities before implementation of the social credit system and after. And this data set contains a lot of variables, 8 major categories, and they add up to 1,000 points. But what we're really interested in are 2 variables from this data set, which is the implementation and enforcement of law category and the political oversight category. So the city's score on these 2 dimensions. And so the first dependent variable is a city score on the implementation and enforcement of law category divided by the total possible number of points for that category. And then the second dependent variable is a city score on the political oversight category, again, divided by the total possible number of points. I'm using an event study analysis here. So the betas are binary variables that take on a value of 1. If it's a pilot city, 3 years before implementation, 2 years before implementation, and so on and so forth with city and year fixed effects. Okay, so on the x-axis are the years prior and post implementation of the social credit system. On the y-axis are the coefficient estimates on the betas I just showed you. Okay, so before implementation of the social credit system, we see that the coefficient estimates on those betas that I showed you in the long equation, they are statistically insignificant. But after implementation, we do see that pilot cities experience an increase on this score, right? And in the 3rd year of implementation, by year 2 on the x-axis, this is a 10 percentage point increase, and about the average is 0.55, so that's 17% of the mean, which is not an insignificant increase in their score. But if we're looking at political oversight, right? So this is a variable that captures whether courts have the ability to really have oversight over local officials. We're seeing that prior to implementation, the coefficient estimates are negative and statistically insignificant, and they continue to be statistically insignificant even after implementation of the social credit system. In the 1st year, they're even actually slightly negative, but that washes out in later years. Okay, so the difference in differences analysis is telling us that the social credit system, I've argued that it's a case of institutional layering. Is it an effective institution? The diff analysis might suggest that yes, it is improving while implementation and enforcement in one sense. Is it an effective autocratic institution? Again, we might think that yes, it's not strengthening the courts or increasing political oversight of the courts over local officials. So to sum up very quickly, I argue that autocrats face a legal dilemma, that they want to secure compliance, they want to regulate economic actors, they want to induce general sort of rule-following behavior amongst public, but they want to do all of that in the absence of strong legal institutions. And so one solution to the sort of legal dilemma of autocrats is to engage in institutional layering. And I've argued that China's social credit system is an example of this type of strategy, that it targets rule violators, not everyone, that it has information consolidating and punitive functions, and that it attempts to gain compliance without strengthening existing legal institutions. Thank you, and I'm happy to take your questions and comments. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and excellent timekeeping as well. Great. Next, we should have Fanyang, I think. Get her up on the screen. Dialing in from Cologne. So if my mental math is correct, I think it's about 2:30 in the morning there.
Hi everyone.
Hello.
Yeah, hi.
Get you up on
Yeah,
Zoom.
it's 2:30 in the morning.
Good. I can count.
I would share
Give it-
my screen here.
A second. Here we go.
Yeah, I hope you can all see it. Does
We
it
can.
work?
We can. Yes.
Okay,
Excellent.
that's great. Yeah.
So Fanyang is a fellow PhD student at the University of Cologne, working on a dissertation related to the development of smart courts in China. Prior to that, she completed an undergraduate and postgraduate degree in law at the China University of Political Science and Law. We're very happy to have her with us today. Very sorry it's not in person. Fan Yang, if you were able to keep your own time, that would be much appreciated, because other than grabbing the microphone, I'm not really sure how else I can interrupt you and get your attention, but the floor is all yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam, for the introduction. And yeah, I apologize for the camera. It doesn't work somehow for a few days. Yeah, but I hope my speech can be very clear to you. So yeah, today I'm not only going to talk about AI, but yeah, AI and big data in Chinese courts. Like the Chinese term, it's smart courts. We call it 智慧法院. And I'm going to show you how technology or AI and big data is empowering Chinese courts. So my presentation today is a brief introduction to Chinese smart courts, and it mainly answers the following two questions. What purposes do AI and big data serve in the Chinese courts? And the second question is, how do they serve those purposes, or how are they used at smart courts? I will use some case studies based on recent development to answer this question. And before I presenting those case studies, I want you all know that smart courts, it's still a very experimental project. It's a project that is initiated by the Supreme People's Court, but there's no unified, systematic, the national system for this. The Supreme People's Court just put the idea there and encourage all the courts, all the local courts around the country to present their own ideas and build their own systems using technologies. So yeah, case studies are based on those cases. There's no unified system. Yeah. So yeah, firstly, I would love to put the answers to the first question directly here using some keywords. So there are three purposes of using technology, using AI and big data in Chinese courts. Firstly, to boost efficiency and consistency around the country. Secondly, to improve the supervision towards judges, and thirdly, to enhance the court's ability to monitor and supervise the society. Yeah, that is give you a hint about the keywords of my speech today. And it's also important to know during what process they are adopted during in the process of the case trial. So in the design of smart courts, big data and artificial intelligence are integrated into four major application scenarios, namely case trial, enforcement of judgment, which only exist in the civil cases, and judicial management, and the public service, the judicial service to the public. And my presentation today mainly involves the first three scenarios, and different scenarios also reflect different purposes. Yeah, and here I want to show you how it's designed to boost efficiency and consistency. It's reflected the most during the case trial process. And among the above four scenarios, case trial is the major focus, of course, because smart courts is mainly for the case trial, where AI and big data are offering assistance to judges during the case trial procedure. And from current practice across the country, there are three typical applications or three typical functions when it comes to increasing efficiency and consistency, which are similar case recommendations, decision assistance or decision prediction, and deviation warning. So I'm going to show you some pictures. This is an example of the first function, similar case recommendation. Sorry, this is in Chinese, but I will explain to you. And as the name implies, it means the recommendation of cases that are most similar to the case the judge is handling. So the main criteria for determining whether a case is similar are the circumstances of this case, the applicable law, and the focus of the dispute. This function is a module that is almost necessary for all smart court systems across the country, which mainly contains functions such as quick search and automatic pushing of similar cases, and can further include the recommendation of other things such as applicable articles, the focus of the dispute, and the main evidence in similar cases. This function is done by extracting the circumstances of the case, finding the cases with the most similar circumstances in the database, and recommending them to the judge. So when the judge is dealing with a case, the system will push a case or several cases that is most similar to the case the judge is processing right now to them, and hoping the judges can use them as a reference. That is what this function is for. And yeah, here comes the second function, decision assistance prediction or decision prediction. Here we can use the Jiangsu, a platform in Jiangsu, which is called Jiangsu Alert Platform as an example. Decision assistance at this platform consists of two aspects. On the one hand, for each criminal case, the alert platform pushes out the recommended sentencing result. It automatically identifies the key circumstances, then comes into prediction model and comes up with a recommended sentencing result according to the optimal decision tree based on the existing algorithms. So as we can see from the pictures, when the system reads all the document that you put in the system, it automatically gives you a suggestion. Okay, how many years we suggest you put this person in prison, and yeah, it gives the judge a recommendation mainly based on the algorithm, based on the machine computing, which is also from learning from similar cases and former cases. This is how this functions works. And the system in Jiangsu only works in criminal cases, but I also read from their report that Jiangsu wants to build similar systems for civil cases and administrative cases. So they have the ambition to expand the cover of the system. Okay, another function is alert for deviations. So this function is directed at monitoring adjudicated cases. Some systems compare the actual outcome with the predicted sentencing outcome to calculate the degree of deviation. When the judge makes a deciding the judgment document, the system can capture this judgment and warn of high deviation. Also using big data visualization to explain to the judge the reasons for this high deviation through the distribution of similar cases and the analysis of the deviation status of the verdict. For example, from this picture on the left side, it's not very clear, but you can say there was like a 40% deviation, which is based on the calculation from this system as like, okay, so your decision now is 40% deviated from our recommended ones. Do you want to stick to it or not? Yeah, and in the middle is a comparison between your sentencing with the predicted sentencing. And on the right side, this chart, it basically shows what the other similar cases, what their results are compared to yours. Yeah, this is this function. And yeah, overall, this type of algorithmic analysis, it's seen as a way to speed up judicial decision making and help judges to decide like cases alike. This is the Chinese term for consistency in the judicial system. We call it 同案同判, which means decide like cases alike. It has been a goal for the judicial reform for for a few years. And although the judge would retain discretion to disregard the above functions, there are research from Cornell Law School in law and psychology suggests that the reference could anchor decisions. numeric anchors such as a sentence recommended indeed can influence judicial decision making. Since in China, judges are typically pressed for time and facing litigation explosion and they're reluctant to take responsibility for a decision that strays from the norm. So this anchoring effect might even be stronger. In practice, what is billed as computer assistant judging is very likely to edge the Chinese courts towards a world in which the judges seek to align their decisions with an outcome recommended by an algorithm. So yeah, in the end, the judges will tend to follow the machine more and more. That is what I can see from the current practices. And okay, that was the first purpose we were talking about, increasing consistency and efficiency. And here I will show you the second purpose I have been researching, to improve oversight of judges, which is during the judicial management. And I will use two examples to explain this. So the first example is a system in Henan province using big data profiling to assess judges' performance. So courts in Henan have set up a smart portrait system, which includes portraits of the judges, assistants, and clerks, other working staff. But here we only talk about the judges. In this system, every judge's profile can be reached. It usually displays the judge's name, gender, department, your position, and your performance. So what kind of performance? We can take a look from the left side, the left bottom. There were a lot of bars, as you can see, which is a ranking of the judges based on the number of cases handled, the number of cases closed by each judge. So the system rank judges based on how many cases you deal with, and in the middle part, it calculates the cases each judge or the whole court have closed every month, every day, or every year, and also compares the changes. For example, okay, it can compare the past week and showing, oh, okay, maybe the cases you are dealing with is increasing or is decreasing. If it's decreasing, it means, okay, so we are dealing with less and less cases now. Maybe we are getting slow. We need to speed up. And on the right part, it's office productivity function. It refers to the number of documents or materials sent and received by the judge. So what this basically means is if the number of documents or number of materials you sent and received is increasing, that means you are more productive. That is the logic this system was based on, and we can say this system is very efficiency oriented. So it's basically are more in favor of efficiency indicators more than anything else. So yeah, this is an example of how Chinese courts are using big data profiling to assess judges' work. And of course, this kind of information is not public. They are only visible to the court officials or to the court officials or to the upper level court, not to the public. And there's another example of how it's used to increase the supervision towards judges. This is an example of automated courtroom inspection system, which empowers the court in Hebei to monitor all the court hearing videos across the whole province. Through this is in Hebei province, so it automatically checks whether cases are being heard digitally, whether every court sessions is being recorded, and whether court sessions are being held according to the scheduled time. And it has some very interesting functions as well. It can detect and warn when it possibly find out some irregular or unprofessional or aberrant behaviors of judges during a court hearing, for example. And in this picture, like there are 4 phrases, Chinese phrases on the bottom. For example, if it can detect irregular outfit, unprofessional outfit, or we say improper outfit. So if the judge is wearing something improper, then the system can detect it. And if the judge left early from the court hearing, or there is 一场倒地, like you just fall down out of nowhere, which could be read as a sign of the litigation parties start fighting, or I guess being sick. Yeah, I haven't found further information on why this is included in the design of the system. I will try to find more. And there are also some other interesting detection functions. It's not shown in this picture, but I can explain to you. So there is also a head down position detection, which means judges are not allowed to keep their head down for a long period of time during a court hearing. So if you keep your head down for a very long time, I don't know how long is long by the will be regarded as long by the system, but if you keep your head down for a long time, then the system will detect it and send the screenshot to the court officials. Which, because if you keep your head down for a long time, it could be read as a sign that the judges might be taking a nap or playing with their mobile phones. Yeah, this is the logic this system is based on. Yeah, and also can detect behaviors such as smoking or drinking. Yeah.
Fine,
So yeah,
could you start wrapping up? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I will wrapping up in 2 minutes. So the another function is to enhance the court's ability to monitor society and diffuse social conflicts, which there are 3 focuses. So AI and big data are used to identify certain cases that the court system is paying extra attention on, for example, important cases or sensitive cases, or cases that influence social stability. Technology is used to identify those cases from normal cases. And yeah, and also big data is used to help to increase the court's ability to help the government identify social issues and help them doing decision making. For example, it analyzed the features of mafia crime or other crimes, like where are they usually located in the country, who are usually the victims, who are usually the criminals, and what kind of features do those cases have. So it helps the government to do decision making. And yeah, this would be very long, and I will skip this. Yeah, and that is my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Moving swiftly on, do we have Dr. Lee with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hello.
So can I share my screen?
Should be able to, yes.
Okay.
Just a quick introduction. Dr. Lee is an assistant professor at the Department of Government and International Studies at Hong Kong Baptist University. Prior to that, she received her PhD in politics and public administration at the University of Hong Kong, before working a short turbojets ride away in Macau as an assistant professor there. Today, she's going to be speaking to us about AI in governance at the local level. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry that I'm late today. So anyway, I will try my best to finish it earlier so that you can have the lunch in Australia. Thank you so much. So can you hear me, right? The title of my topic is that is making governments agile, exploring the role of the AI in China's local governance. So over the past 2 decades, so governments around the world has recognized the significance of accelerating digital transformation. So with the emergence of the AI, governments have gone beyond merely digitalizing front-end services and have begun to pursue government has the platform and the agile development of digital service. So such initiatives aim to fundamentally re-engineer government operations, processes, and the system. So we know that AI refers to the simulation of the human intelligence linked to the development of algorithmic models that automatically work and learn by themselves through the inputs developed by humans. So it is an integral part of the information revolution and a pillar of the agile governance. So scholars believe that AI has the potential to help the government provide seamless public service delivery, generate greater public value from data, and achieve agility. So previous research has discussed the applications and the challenges of using AI in public sectors and whether its configuration increases citizen satisfaction. So yet we know little about how AI affects local governments, especially the advances that AI-supported services for the public sector in local governments has ventured. So this is the research questions I tries to answer in this project. So I address this gap by examining the deployment of AI technology in the local governments of Shenzhen, so a pilot city of digital transformation in China. So before we go to the research design part, let's first talk about the related literature. The related literature falls into 2 strands of the literature: the government digital transformation, GAAP, and agile governance, and the rise of the AI in the public sector. So previous studies on GAAP, government as a platform, discuss the principles and the concepts of the processes and the challenges associated with the GAAP. So however, there is little empirical evidence. So most of the previous literature focuses on the nascent stage of the GAAP, such as the motivation and the drivers of participation and the platforms that mediate between citizens and the government. The limited number of studies that have been conducted in these areas highlight the government backend nature and the orchestrating role in GAAP based on the experiences of some pioneering countries such as the United Kingdom, the US, Italy, and Russia. So while the GAAP not only indicates the architecture of transparent, participatory, and collaborative government, it also generates a public sector reform that requires an agile working approach in public administration. So the agile working approach and or agile governance as a driver to achieve GAAP contrasts agility with the traditional waterfall working approach to follow rigid plan and implements project in strict sequential orders. So current discussion on agility mainly focuses on the national government's principles and the strategies in introducing the agile approach into the public sectors. So the next sector of the related literature is the rise of the AI in the public sectors. As a key to AI, algorithms are the building blocks that will help the public sector achieve efficient, low-cost, and neutral solutions that harness big data. While introducing AI into public management challenges traditional bureaucratic principles and the bureaucrat's discretionary power. Scholars use the term algorithmic bureaucracy to describe new bureaucratic systems strengthened by smart technology and highlight the complex role of AI in assisting citizens with their service needs and helping frontline staffs. So, however, most previous research in this part, in this field is normative and exploratory based on the experience of developed countries. Most exploration of AI in developed countries rather than the developing country experiences. So my research will contribute to this field. So in this project, I use mixed sequential research design that combines topical modeling and qualitative analysis to explore our research questions. So we start with LDA method to enrich analysis, which was rigorous without human bias. So here is a sequential research design. Involves the following steps. First, I crawled policy documents that were composed and published by Shenzhen government agencies on AI from the government website between 2016 to 2022, and then identify the policy document related to AI. Then we remain about 103 documents. And then I conduct the topical modeling analysis with a qualitative analysis to try to find the different dimensions that the government focus on the AI topics in AI configuration in public sectors. So this figure, we use LDA topical modeling to analyze the content of the policy documents extracted from the original policy pool. So this figure are recognized by the intertopical distance map. It visualized how similar or distinct the topics are and the relative size of the topics. So here, the size of each bubble represents the frequencies, and the locations of the bubbles demonstrates topic similarities. So here you can see that mostly the government focus on the 9 topics, including the building integrated digital government platforms, organizational support for the digital government transformation, etc. So these figures shows, these tables shows the detailed keywords of the 9 dominant topics from the most to least important. So we then qualitatively analyze both their constituent words and the policy statement relating to these topics, and then identify the 3 dimensions that the government focus on the AI configuration in the public sector, which is the data integration, the policy innovation, and smart collaboration and smart applications. So then I use 2 complex cases to elaborate how the government focus on these 4 dimensions to do the digital transformation. The first case is unified management in one network, launched by the Pingshan government, district government. So in 2019, the Pingshan district government in Shenzhen built a unified management in one network platform. So it is called the platform, but actually it's essentially work like a terminal. It combines online and offline public service delivery, integrates various types of the data across functional agencies within the public sector, and assemble both public demands and the demands from the private sectors. So the first dimension, data integration. So the one network platform integrated previously, or all of the previously reporting and complaint channels into the smart terminal. So with the help of the AI, the terminal analyzes and processes all the information synthetically. So based on the integrated data and analysis and the AI algorithms, the platform can smartly assign tasks to the relevant functional agencies and the frontline workers. Once these tasks have been distributed to the agencies and their workers, the frontline workers must take responsibility of these tasks and work out a solution before a deadline set by the terminal. So the terminal will issue a warning if a task is not completed online. So in the course of the task processing, the platform records all the frontline workers' procedures and actions. So this recorded data will contribute to the future data analysis and the algorithmic design. So thus, the AI's data integration function will solve the bypassing problems among government agencies and breaking through the fragmented bureaucracy. Okay, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So the next dimension is collaboration. So this platform has not only connected front-end services user and back-end government workers, it also has ability to learn from the continuous real-time data inputs and adjust its response accordingly, thus intensifying government-citizen collaborations. All the processes and their interactions are intuitive. So, here. Here I will skip these slides because of the time limits. And in this case, we can show that the AI builds the functions for data integration platform that strengthens government-citizen collaboration and fuels policy innovation. The government agencies that is assigned a task on the platform is responsible for the issue until a solution is found, and a first assigned responsibility system to ensure the government. In this sense, the AI worked as a cage to monitor all the frontline workers, all the workers by the frontline staffs. And the second case is an open data policy lab launched by the Futian government. Still in 2019, the Futian government in Shenzhen built the open data policy lab. So this lab worked on an alternative way to analyze and co-create solutions for specific issues in the back end of the public sector innovation. So it regularly release AI application scenarios, provided data, equivalent venues, and other testing environment, and invited excellent AI institutions to open up office in Futian to accelerate the implementation of AI technology in the cities. So here I just give you one examples. So this is a project from the sandbox launched by the Futian government called the AI government employees. So this uses the technology combining the RPA plus AI robots. So this figure displays the simple workflow changes after introducing an RPA plus AI robots to process of the license applications and the filling of the sewage pipe networks. So you can see that previously the staff had to manually input all the informations and the process informations and find, enter, check, scan, print the data and the document. The whole process took nearly 10 minutes. And with the help of the robots, now they can the different stages, the different actions such as search, check, register, record, print, scan, etc. All of these are done by the robots and significantly increase the working efficiency. The whole process nowadays just takes 1 to 2 minutes to finish. So the sandbox, I will finish in 2 minutes. Thank you. So we can see that the sandbox facilitated the collaboration between the government and the high technology companies and boost the innovations. So the AI robots effectively helps the frontline workers solve the labor shortage problems. So the AI government employees help the Windows staff shorten their working times and increase their working efficiency. So in this sense, the AI works as a colleague to help frontline workers deliver services and make decisions. So the last slides concludes and discussion. So in this project, by exploring a sequential mixed methods, this study identified 4 dimensions of AI deployment in the public sector in the context of the China, data integration, policy innovation, smart application, and collaboration. So Shenzhen's experience indicates that the primary goals of utilizing AI are to achieve data integration and innovative public service provision at the local level. So I conclude from the case analysis that AI plays two roles in local government as AI cage that regulates frontline workers' activities and the AI colleague that help frontline workers make decisions. So both function contributes to the local governments by optimizing workflows, improving public service provisions, and enabling intensive government citizen collaborations. And a little bit discussion, but I will skip these slides because of the time limits. So thank you so much. All the suggestions and the comments are welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Yiran. Okay, we are coming up very, very quickly on lunch. Given that we did start a couple of minutes late, maybe we can just stretch with a few questions. Haemin, I don't know if you want to join us up here. Do we have any questions from the floor? We're here.
Thank you very much, Adam, and I shall be short. Haemin, lovely seeing you finally in the flesh. Thank you also for your very interesting presentation. And I really like this idea of the institutional layerings of trying to navigate a way to achieve functional objectives while avoiding institutional concerns. And it maps what we've seen in other areas, right? The idea of Weberian professionalism in not just the legal system, but also, for instance, investigative journalism has been very clearly a target of the Xi Jinping administration. I want to ask, however, is authoritarianism the only concern, or is there also a matter where what we've seen in the Chinese judiciary system is just a lack of resources, where if you have a law degree, you can make a lot more money in legal practice with a lot less political concern? Is this only a response to, the fear of an autonomous profession, or is there also a concern in having to deal with the fact that there is a human resources problem or a bureaucratic resources problem, and even in a liberal democratic society, if China were a liberal democratic society, we might need something like this because we simply cannot get the professionals to staff the system.
Just before you jump in, Haemin, maybe we should collect up any final questions so that we can answer them all in one go. Were there any more questions? No questions online? Straton?
Yes, I have a question for Fanyang on the case study of the trial monitoring. And I was wondering if you've had the chance already to talk to any Chinese judges and ask them about how this has affected their work. Yeah, very simple. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Let's get some answers. Yeah, do you want to come up?
Okay. Thank you for your question. It's great to see you in person as well. We've just done email correspondence. So I think this is an interesting question. So whether there are real sort of institutional, human resource, bureaucratic constraints. And I'm definitely not discounting that or discounting the role that might play. I think it's a case of, for me, the original question for me was, why invest in creating this entirely new institution? Because that in itself also demands resources. It demands time, it demands technology, it demands, you are now putting more and more onto these local officials, rather than shifting sort of that work to the institutions that already exist and already are supposed to regulate these kinds of activities. And so for me, I think it still comes back to the question of, if the motivation is, well, we don't have enough human resources, we don't have enough, funding or institutional resources, well, creating a new entire system demands all those things too. And so I think for me, it's about sort of what resources are available and then what are the strategic choices being made. And I think that one sort of factor has to be this idea of protecting authoritarianism, or at least being very risk averse about investing in judicial type of institutions. So if you're making strategic choices about where to put your resources, I think one explanation would be to try and protect yourself against other types of institutions.
And Fanyang, did you have an answer to your question?
Yeah, I could elaborate a bit on that. So I'm not very sure about if you specifically refer to the courtroom inspection function or this monitoring towards judges in general, because I have talked to several judges, not officially, but about the monitoring towards judges in general. It definitely increases the pressures on judges because those mechanisms pose a psychological deterrent effect on the judges. But also in some regions, because of these reasons, a lot of judges they refuse, or the courts themselves refuse to adopt more technology into their daily work. So it basically really depends on the region how much degree they use technology in their life. But if you specifically refer to the courtroom inspection system in Hebei province, no, unfortunately, I haven't talked to the judges there. Yeah, I hope this answers your question. Thank you.